Okay, everybody, so I frequently, on Twitter, will put out polls for you all to react to. And one of the ones I did recently was like, which director would you want to see do which fantasy story the most? And that inspired me to do this video because I want to go over my picks for directors I think would fit random fantasy series the best. Now, what does this entail? Mainly me doing a lot of research late at night when I should be sleeping, but I can't because I have insomnia, about directors. I've seen a few of their movies, so I feel qualified to talk about this. But I know the fantasy stories quite well, so I matched them up. Boom, I'm gonna give you my picks. You're gonna let me know in the comments section down below what you think of my picks. Do you love them? Do you hate them? And then, if this video does well, I'll do more videos like it in the future. Maybe casting videos, maybe scoring videos. That'd be fun. Or just keep going with directors, because I have like 15 matched up, and I'm not gonna do all 15 in this video, because I'm gonna go a little bit in depth here. Now, there are only 2 rules for this series right now. 1, the director has to be alive, and I can't use the same director twice. So we're going to go ahead and start progressing through. Let's just throw an example out. If I say I'm gonna pick a director for Memory, Sorrow, Thorn, I'm gonna throw Peter Jackson in the mix. So now I can't reuse Peter Jackson. Does that make sense? Nice. Let's just jump on into it. First Law is the first series we'll be talking about. Now remember, this is a live action movie scenario. I know there's gonna be people in the comments section who are gonna be going like, it should be a real animated TV. That's not what we're going with. We're going with live action movie. And for First Law, what's really important for me here is tone and character work, for obvious reasons. We have Glokta, who is one of the best characters of modern fantasy, and a tone that, while it is consistently grim-dark, like you are a sad pumpkin while you're reading this series, it never becomes exhausting, which is especially difficult when making a movie. A lot of directors who have this darker approach to their storytelling, it can become exhausting. And for First Law being, several movies we're gonna do it right, I think we need to find someone who's found a delicate balance of having that gritty realism, that darker view of the world, but is so compelling in their narrative that they're able to keep you as an audience member going. And for me, that's David Fincher. Quick insert here. I originally had some very nice editing I was proud of. Actually, I thought it was some of the best I had ever done and was really excited to bring for you guys with trailers from the movies I'm about to talk about, which, 1, trailers are widely considered just free and fair to use for things like this because they're promotional material. But 2, what I was doing was definitely fair use in general because it was transformative in nature with myself bouncing around on the green screen. And also, I was providing reviews and criticism, which you're about to see. But for some reason, I did get copyright claims from Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Universal. So I had to undo all of that and instead have a not nearly as well done editing for what you're about to see, and I apologize. I thought about disputing the claims, but after talking to other people who have done this, they said it can take up to 30 days, and I certainly don't want to wait 30 days to put out this video, which I kind of want to do now for various scheduling reasons I have down the road. So, I'm upset, but here you go is my best recovered editing attempt here the day before it's supposed to be released. Now, a lot of people might not think of him first case when it comes to directing a First Law movie, but after going through his back catalog, I think this is a very good one, mainly for 2 movies in particular. The guy's an impressive resume with everything from Gone Girl to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, a movie I actually quite like. But the 2 I'm pulling from right now are his work in Zodiac and his work in Seven. For those of you unaware, both of these are thrillers with mystery at their core, both following serial killers. Now, that's not particularly important for First Law, but there is a very strong mystery element to the First Law story as it begins. And on top of that, it is a character study of a fantasy work, and that is where David Fincher shines. Seven, for example, is probably one of Brad Pitt's best performances of all time, and with the brief appearance of the actor who turns out to be the serial killer, I won't say it because it's a spoiler, one of his best performances of all time also, though that's kind of creepier and creepier as time goes on, but we're not going to get into that. If we're talking about movies that do have this bleak outlook on reality, I can't think of one that's darker than Seven, because every scene, it's raining outside, the people are just miserable, the ambiance he creates with the sound design and the cinematography just makes this whole city just feel like a landscape of misery. It's basically, he achieved what I was talking about. Yes, the story is not enjoyable, but you are so compelled by the characters and their dire need to solve this crime and the stakes presented to the audience so clearly and concisely. This is the kind of creative vision I think First Law would need. Now, slipping over to Zodiac, why do I bring this up? And 7 is disturbing, but it's not exactly scary. For me, there are scenes in First Law I would say are borderline scary because of the characters involved. Logan Ninefingers is someone, when he's in a room with you, you should be clinching. So Zodiac accomplishes this several points, where you're actually seeing the Zodiac killer on screen doing his Zodiac business. That is going to be the same kind of level of intensity, and especially depictions of violence that are so brutal and upfront to the camera, that I think that would fit Joe Abercrombie's work the best. The violence in David Fincher's movies is never fun and entertaining. It is brutal, it is terrifying, and these scenes in Zodiac are exceptional examples of that kind of vision being the right direction to go into. So for my first pick in this series we're doing the grimdark boy here, and we're going David Fincher, who I guess you could say is like the grimdark director right now. There are others who do a really good damn job, but David Fincher for me, we're going right there. Now let's completely change the direction here. Let's go funny. Can we go funny? I'm on book 29 of Discworld. I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep going. I really love it so far, but it's a long series. But one thing has become abundantly clear as I have gotten into Discworld, and that is that Hollywood has never had a director better suited in its entire history to helm this creation of a movie of Discworld than Taika Waititi. This man is one of the strangest comedic directors working. He nails his comedy every single time, and I believe his comedic soul lines up with Sir Pratchett's magnificently. Said that word. Magnificently. If you haven't seen Taika Waititi's work, I highly suggest the awkward documentary-style comedy What We Do in the Shadows, or the bold and absurdist Jojo Rabbit, which, talk about bold comedy. And that's something that I think Discworld is actually underappreciated for. A lot of people just think of it as absurdist, but especially further on in the series, I have definitely picked up a toning down of comedy, but also having the comedy to have more of a direction and purpose. And that is something that, again, Taika Waititi has shown in Jojo Rabbit he is quite good at. And then we can flip over to his other major blockbuster, Thor Ragnarok, where he's tackling heavy fantasy elements. In fact, he has fantasy elements in all of these stories. So yeah, the guy seems like he's in a great position to follow up with a fantasy project. And there is no fantasy project I think he is better equipped for than Terry Pratchett's Discworld. I even put out a poll on Twitter where I was like, what director would you want to see do these movies? And even though Discworld is not the hottest it's ever been right now, and it's never been the most popular fantasy series, the combination of Taika Waititi and Discworld won by a lot. So I think I'm not in the minority here. It's a good pairing, and this one, I'm willing to admit I could be wrong on a few of these. I don't think I'm wrong on this one. Taika Waititi was born to do this. Now we have Mistborn, and a lot of people are going to throw out a lot of names for Mistborn. I've seen people throw everything out from Christopher Nolan, which, not a bad pick, I like Nolan, to more indie directors who have like their own stylistic flair that they think will line up with the atmosphere that is so oppressive of the first Mistborn trilogy. But one director really stood out to me, and that is Patty Jenkins. She directed Monster, The Killing, and Wonder Woman. So right there, she has two with a very dark tone and psychological understandings of some really disturbed people, especially in Monster. She managed to get a performance out of Charlize Theron that is flooring. And The Killing is probably one of the best cop procedurals I've ever seen. But then we flip over to Wonder Woman, where she's handling someone with superpowers who's slowly coming to their own and realizing what they can do for the world. All things that I think work really well for then coming in to helm a Mistborn project. I think her action scenes in Wonder Woman could have used some polishing, but apparently Zack Snyder was involved in those as well, and I don't like Zack Snyder's handling of action, so I can't tell who's more responsible there. I would maybe just say really rely on some choreographers and just roll with it. I don't know. Mistborn action is going to be difficult no matter who you're talking to because of the magic system involved. Like, you're going to need some like Wachowskis in the early 2000s level revolutionary stuff to bring Mistborn's magic system to the screen in the appropriate way. I think this is why a lot of people push for it to be animated, but that's not what we're doing here. But Patty Jenkins, especially with the two, The Killing and Monster, Actually, I think those two make her line up with Mistborn better than people might think. Mistborn's darker than a lot of people seem to give it credit for. Like, Brandon's work in general, people tend to just kind of be like, oh yeah, he's the guy who doesn't write that much dark stuff. Spoiler warning, Vin headbutts a guy while using magic to the point where he just explodes and there's just blood, and she's like, did I do good? Like, there's a lot of murder. Vin, of any protagonist, might have one of the highest body counts. The woman just massacres people who are just doing their jobs. But I don't think that violence should be glossed over, because I don't think Brandon Sanderson did. He has scenes where characters are reacting to what Vin is doing, as in like, holy shit. That's a lot of murder, especially with people like Kelsier. We also have a very well maintaining of a darker tone, but not overly dark, from Patty Jenkins in The Killing. Now let's transition into another much darker story, and that is the Poppy War. Poppy War is going to be, you need someone who's proven they can handle hefty themes. I mean, the Poppy War's purpose of existence is to explore how war is affecting the little guy, how it's ruining lives en masse, and these grand visions of these people in charge are actually responsible for so much death and chaos. So we need someone who's not afraid to dive into these ideas while simultaneously directing a war epic. I mean, I'm talking stuff on the scale of like the best war action scenes you've ever seen. That's not an easy ticket, man. Those are two very separated events. And I found a director who I would have never thought of in a million years doing this, and that's Sam Mendes, who, if you're unaware, has recently done 1917. So already just getting that epic war vibe out of the way, done, taken care of. I found the writing of that movie to be weak, but overall the direction was very good. So I think that checks that box. He can definitely inspire you as an audience member to watch a sequence within a war and go, God damn. But the psychological aspects are so at the forefront of the Poppy War. They're so important to what is being told to us in this narrative. And that's where actually an older movie from Sam Mendes comes into play for me. Now, it's one that's not universally loved. I'm aware of that, and it's Jarhead. Jarhead, if you look, has people very split online. I think it's very good. I think the people who don't like it maybe weren't aware they weren't going into a traditional war movie when they jumped on in, because this is not about the action. This is about a character, a soldier, who is fundamentally being torn apart by the atmosphere he's in. The chaos of war and the fact that he has yet to pull his trigger makes him feel so useless, yet so afraid. It's a beautiful mixture, and I think a perfect example of how this director right here is certainly able to handle scenes like we will then see in the Poppy War is the sniper scene in Jarhead. Spoiler warning for this movie if you have not seen it, but it's near the end, and our main protagonist has yet to pull the trigger, and it's driving him insane. He feels like he has to be a good soldier. He needs to pull the trigger. He wants to kill, and he finally gets the permission to kill someone in a tower he's looking at down a sniper scope. It'll be easy for him. Gets the permission, lines it up, but he's interrupted. And they say no, they're gonna bomb it instead. And so they call in a strike, and his buddy can't handle this. He can't handle the fact that they're not gonna finally have that tension release of pulling the trigger, and instead, it's taken away from them. And as a director, Sam Mendes didn't have all these quick cuts or over-dramatic close-ups. Instead, it's a simple back and forth between the officer telling them no and a soldier in a medium shot who can't handle another no. He can't handle not having some form of tension release, and he just breaks down, and it's not over-dramatized. The performance is allowed to shine above all else, and that's what I'd like to see for the Poppy War. That is what I would like to see brought in. Not this overly dramatic close-up, screaming tears, stuff like that, but just let the actors in a steady singular shot break down, because that is how I envision the more dramatic scenes in Poppy War. I just feel like I'm witnessing a very realistic approach to how people can respond to the darkest that humanity is capable of. Now, I'm only going to do one more book series, and I want to end on one that I think will be very controversial in my pick, and that is actually one we know is coming down the road as a TV show, or at least is being shopped around as such by the author online. He tweeted about this recently. It's Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Ames. A funny, hardcore, nerdy, party-based fantasy adventure. A lot of people could do this. Like, I'm not saying there's a lot of bad picks here, but there's one for me that really matched up with my vision of what Kings of the Wild could be. And we need a director who has outstanding comedic abilities that then don't turn his movies into just complete comedies. Like, I would say Taika Waititi is a comedy director first and foremost. I don't want a comedy director. I want a director who really understands the balance of relationships, someone who can have the soul of their story come from the bonding of the characters we follow, someone who has a very unique visual flair. I've always visioned Kings of the Wild as having a lot of storytelling through its visuals and a pacing that is then enhanced by that visual storytelling. No one clicks all those boxes for me better than Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright, if you're unaware, is one of the most ambitious directors in terms of his visual storytelling and comedy currently working, in my opinion. From Baby Driver to Shaun of the Dead to Hot Fuzz, the guy rarely misses the mark when it comes to his comedy or his characters and their relationships to each other. Like, for example, Shaun of the Dead is a comedy, don't get me wrong, first and foremost, it is a comedy, but the friendship there is so well realized, so much better than you'd ever expect going into it. Same with Hot Fuzz. And that's the kind of work with relationships that is desperately needed for Kings of the Wild, because this is a story where what you care about most is how these characters interact with each other. Don't get me wrong, it's really solid all the way through, but the soul, the heart, the blood of Kings of the Wild is how these characters work together. You take that and you build from there with Edgar Wright's very attention-grabbing, flashy visual storytelling, and then layer in the comedy chops, landing someone who understands how to make jokes, visual or dialogue-based, hit and get the reaction from the audience they want. That's a director I see helming Kings of the Wild. Now, I know there's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna say, no, this is wrong for XYZ reason. I want Christopher Nolan doing Mistborn, and yeah, that'd probably be a good pick too. I tried to go very specifically for which directors are nailing certain elements from these stories I find to be very crucial. For example, I was gonna put Stormlight Archive in here with Denis Villeneuve, but I think that's more like a whole 10-minute video on its own of why, breaking down in detail why he is the perfect director to helm Stormlight if it will be a movie. But I'd love to know your thoughts to anything I said, directors you'd like to see tied in with other projects in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high-tier Patreons. Morgoth. Marcia Tucker. Mitia is M-I-C-A-I. I wasn't sure about that one. And then welcome back, Jennifer Nightingale. It's good to see you back at the Patreon. Hope everything's going phenomenal for everyone. And everyone in the Patreon. I hope everyone's just having a really great day, because I'm having a pretty good one, to be honest. It's a good start to the week for me. I hope it's the same for everyone in my audience.